Hi, everyone,
Hello.
and welcome.
Hello.
So great that you can all join us. We've just lit a candle here for an elder in our community who died a couple of days ago. This is for Petrus. Some of you might know him. Yeah, very special man. So, officially welcome. We have quite a lot to get through tonight. We've kind of mapped out, done a rough map of all the things that we would like to talk about. I guess we're going to preface it by saying that we are not experts in this field. We have been guiding circles and been participants in circles for the last 8 years, sort of intentionally in the forest behind our house. We have experience to share, but we are by no means experts, and we don't profess to be experts. We just have, some learnings to share, and also to talk through some of the mistakes that we've made, and some of the things that have come up for us, and we'd love to share that with you all.
Hmm. Um, is that's the
Yeah,
housekeeping,
yeah.
isn't
Do
it?
you want to talk about him in the call?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm going to start by just giving a brief intro to how we arrived at, or the early seeds really of this ceremonial approach, gathering together with intention um, around a fire in the forest and beginning the practice of deep listening and attempting to move away from judgment and time poverty, lack of presence, all the things, all the struggles that I'm sure some of you feel living under uh, the pressures of modernity. So this is like a story of reclamation, of being human and connecting with the goddess, Mother Goddess, um, and the way in which that began for us was getting our house in order and leaving behind. I guess there's so many words to describe this. The Moloch, industrial capitalism. I call it hypertechnicity. Others call it the machine. Um, yeah, just a hyper uh, masculine, disconnected, uh, technological, obsessed, um, earth dishonoring culture. So I guess Meg and I have a practice of 20 years of intentionally moving to another place and knowing what we wanted to leave behind, but not necessarily knowing where we were heading. And after we got our house in order, after we turned our compacted clay soils into some cultivated uh, um, love, and stinging nettle found her way into the garden as a signifier of that, and so many other volunteer plants. Um, yeah, we made space and time and heard the call of a more ceremonial approach. And we very much started this journey as, I guess, secular atheists. Um, uh, I guess kind of um, promiscuous Marxists, um, and uh, yeah, and sort of inadvertent materialists, just basically industrial educated subjects of capital. So after a number of years, we started to take volunteers, um, and a couple, you might like to take over this story, but
Sure.
a couple landed and created something quite special here. We had many, many volunteers beforehand and many since, but there was a moment where this couple landed and a spark was given.
Uh, Connor was coming to stay for a year, and Marta was from WA, and Marta was coming for a week from Poland. And they met, as Patrick said, sparks flew, love was ignited. They ended up staying with us long term, and then left and got married and had a baby. And before they had a baby, I offered to host a motherhood circle for Marta. And then Marta approached Patrick and requested that he facilitate a men's, like a fatherhood circle for Connor. And both of those circles happened, and um, sparks were ignited in both of those circles as well. And after the motherhood circle, we all left and said, "Wow, that was so moving and so special, and it wouldn't be wonderful if we could have a circle like this more often." And the same thing happened for the men, and so the two circles were born at the same time from the same spark.
And I might just run through how I ran that fatherhood circle. At the time, I was reading Martin Prechtel's work and Michael Mead's work, and I was guided by both those fellas in different ways. The first circle was a question. It was what a quality that you see in yourself that's come from your father that you like. There was an old man at that circle who had never had a positive thing to think about his father in his 70 odd years of life until that moment. And that was deeply moving. That was like the first layer of tears that was shed on that night as men, as brothers, joining together. The second circle was what is the wound from your father, the main wound from your father, and where is it located in your body or on your body? And that was a big circle. And bigger than I had expected, and certainly bigger than I, as a sort of non-facilitating facilitator, felt I could hold. But just to get back to that trust, we were all holding each other by this stage, and the bigness and the vulnerability and the grief and the sharing of wounds that many of us hadn't really aired before. Soon created a kind of bond that is still in existence today with a number of those fellows that still gather. And the third circle was what are the gifts from the wound? How are you in the process of integrating the wound in your life? And so without really knowing what I was doing, but following the form and setting and structure of much wiser men, we crafted Hobble, and then of course the honesty and integrity of the men stepping in and answering those questions from their souls, and as with as much integrity as each of us could muster, that kicked off the men's circle.
So we are part of separately a men's circle that Patrick is part of. It's called Fire Choir, and they meet every 3 weeks at the Fire Circle, which is a dedicated place that is in common land behind our house, or like that way, not directly behind, but a few 100 meters behind. And the women meet every month, usually the last Friday of the month. And also we're part of mixed gendered circles that are less regular. And also as part of our forest group that we're that we're guiding every Monday for kids who don't go to school, forest and free. We also have a check-in and a check-out circle with the kids. And also, if any issues arise, we also just stop what we're doing and have a dedicated circle to discuss the event that's just happened. The fact that these circles are on common land feels really significant to the integrity and the openness of these circles. It's not in someone's backyard, it's not in someone's home, it's outside. I feel like that in itself is such a significant part of the circle. And there's a bit of a winding down track to get there. And sometimes our goats are in there, sometimes the sheep, sometimes they're little babies, baby goats, baby kids and lambs. But when you start walking down the path at night and there's a big fire calling you in, and you sort of, I already just sort of drop into this sacred space. And the women are very fortunate to have Patrick and sometimes Woody going in advance down to the circle and chopping firewood or bringing in firewood. And Patrick also lights the fire for us and sets an intention. And as you've said, that you set an intention for the fire, that you don't set one for the circle because that's not up to you to do. But I just really love that you set one for the fire. And we feel that. And we meet, in the warmer months, it's light when we're heading down to the circle, and we sit in circle for the first few hours in the light. And sometimes I like that, but mostly I don't. I much prefer the dark. And in the winter months, it's always dark. And yeah, there's just something about that coziness of sitting around a circle on very humble logs that are low to the ground. We always take our shoes off. And the fire circle it's in a sort of novel, what would be called a novel ecosystem. It's a mixed forest. It's lots of mainly hawthorns that are around the circle. There's some pines and apple trees and eucalypts and blackwoods and holly and lots of brambles around, lots of blackberries mainly. I feel like that the setting is sort of half the work. And we'll get to this a little bit later. But in the beginning, when we were both very green to this work, it sort of felt like it's so much easier to drop in sitting outside in a circle in a forest around a fire, because our bones know what that means. Our bones remember how to do that.
And also what happens when we're in a forest, just the rewiring, the mental rewiring when we're outside of constructed modern spaces. Something else happens that's, there's less distractions to connect with, I guess, what we call the living of the world. That's far more than human. But yeah, in the summer months, we tend to go off the 12 to 18 people. The groups are around about that, each circle, both with the men and women, something like that. And in the summer months when it's light, when we meet, sort of usually around 6 o'clock in the evening, but also sometimes in the winter as well, there's an invitation to disperse into the forest and find a sit spot until, well, I'll speak to how we men do it, until someone drums us back in. And that's just a way to let the road dust settle, and all the busyness of the day, all the family responsibilities or work pressures of whatever pressures, whatever busyness. It's just for each of us, before we come together into a collective work to just, as Meg has used that term, drop in, arrive is
Land.
Arrive is another way to put it. And sometimes it's the fire in the dark of winter that brothers arrive, greet each other, and then sit, and we just start with silence, beholding the fire, which is also incredibly powerful.
Mm. Yeah,
Mm.
and we have a similar process. In the warmer months, we also spread out, and then I make a sound and call everybody back in, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 10, 15, depending on how many of us there are and if we're short on time. Or myself, I know that sometimes there's like a lot going on, and I really need a lot of time just to drop in and just to land.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, and as one who often guides the circle, getting down there early and lighting the fire and setting an intention, uh, in this case for the men's circle, um, there's usually something happens down in the forest that activates a theme or some sort of beginning point that a thread that comes through the circle, and also, of course, what each of the men bring. Um, and I think it's probably a good time to talk about basket weaving, but we haven't got to
The agreements.
the agreements.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's worthwhile going through the agreements.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, these
Yeah.
are,
And then, so if you want to read yours, and then we have some that are slightly different. So then I
yeah.
might talk to those.
So the agreements have been made by the men who um, come to the circle and changed over time. And they are to really create a basket framework for our weaving, um, that means that the way in which we gather and meet um, uh, is held by agreements that everyone's agreed to. But by going over them again, because we're not a closed circle, and we'll talk about the reason for that maybe a bit later or in the questions. We're open, so sometimes we might have 6 brothers, sometimes we might have 18 arrive. We don't know. Some quite often a new fella comes and gives it a go, and so we every single circle we go through the agreements just to uh yeah set some boundaries as well as intentions for our gathering. So the first agreement is to foremost and first honor the land and the ancestors. Second is to speak from the whole body. So I'll be quite quick about this, but I've written quite a lot on this about how we have different logic centers, and the gut is like the mother country of all of us, the goddess. I've written about Pandora being located in the gut as the great fermenter, the goddess of insight, and then there's the heart. So there's a heart intelligence here, so another logic center, and then there's the Promethean um, brain, the two-sided two-part logic center of the brain, which obviously has is another whole complex itself. But for men especially, we like to talk about speaking from the whole body so that we're not just heads on legs, where sort of ideology and politics tends to sort of habitate this space. So speaking from the whole body is the invitation for men to really get in touch with their insight, their intuition in the gut, and their compassionate logic center as well. So that's what that one means. Number 3 is avoid we, you, or they statements. So, which again is like we men have a tendency to, speak in universals. I think our whole culture does actually. You know how
Whole culture does.
totally. Well, I mean, that's a sort of a social critical comment rather than, how we all feel this about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to avoid that. So if we're speaking to try to use I statements so that we're just speaking from our experience, which grounds what we're saying often rather than uh, we're speaking in abstracts. Listen with openness. So that's the heart. 5, avoid rehearsed thoughts. So that's an invitation for brothers not to say, oh, I know what I'm going to say at the circle. It's like try and arrive and just empty everything because actually you want to connect with your heart and your gut. And what's rehearsed up here is often, it's maybe important in preparing for a circle, but just land in the circle and feel the collective magic of the brothers who have met, the country, mother country herself, and Father Fire, who's warming and illuminating our gathering point and providing a focus um, and a hearth. Number 6, provide context but get to the core. So yeah, that's like an invitation not to get stuck in the story. Um, when we're in deep grief, when I've been in deep grief, catch myself out. When I've been in deep grief, the story and context sometimes feels really, really important. Uh, However, what lies behind it, yeah, the story can actually get in the way of what actually needs to be revealed or to be accessed. So that's what that one is. Number 7, avoid politicizing or philosophizing. Number 8, honor confidentiality. So share sacred to sacred. That means that if something comes up in the circle, rather than being secret men's business, um, that if we've heard something in the circle from another brother and it's really moved something in us and brought something up in us, and we need to share that with a partner or a loved one or a friend, that not to do it in some random way while you're just sort of on the run or at work or in some family context when it's busy, to actually make time with that friend, lover, whatever, outside of the circle to say, hey, this came up, um, and not to give that brother's story away, but actually the subject and speak just to the subject so that we're honoring confidentiality of someone else's personal story while we're not also secreting and becoming this sort of secret society, which is unhealthy. We're actually wanting, that's why we talk about what we do, not as a container, but as a basket. And a basket is porous. It allows the spores to fall out and to repopulate the forest after the mushroom forages or during the mushroom foraging. So um, yeah, so that's really important to explain that to newcomers, that we don't talk about other people's stories, but if a subject that has triggered has triggered us, and that's really brought something up for us, well, then that's really important to be able to discuss that. Number 9, fix no brother and give no advice. So we're not a bunch of psychologists. We're a bunch of men from who are just listening and holding space for each other to share what needs to be shared, what needs to be spoken. Yeah, so fix no brother and give no advice that's a really important agreement. And that sort of stuff, when people jump in to fix, often if they're new, they've just heard a story and they've got all the answers for it and just jump in. It's sort of like assuming that brother has never thought of those things. This might be something really big in that person's life. And, just to come in with, some advice or, a fixing thing it diminishes trust. That's the thing that we really don't want to do. We want to do the opposite of that. Number 10, interrupt no brother with speech or touch. So that if a brother is sharing and he's really struggling, that is not a time to put your hand on his shoulder if he asks for a hug, absolutely, that's very different. But that can jolt that share. That can be really jolting to that brother who's, even though being held and listened to, and there is the love and compassion in the listening, there isn't this sort of like, again, this can be like a form of fixing. And that brother does not need that right then, unless he asks for it. And then that's completely different. Um, Number 11, uh, there's an exception. This is exception one. Ask a brother a question if a brother is perceivably stuck. So that's usually for one of us guides that are a bit more experienced. We've been doing this for 8 years now. So if a story is just going around and around and it's sort of escalating, a really loving and compassionate question can just yeah, just be a yeah, not to disrail the share, but to actually bring it back into where you think as a guide that brother, um, well, yeah, the important part of that share that brother is sharing. So again, after several years of sitting in circle, it becomes clear when each of us tried to obfuscate or avoid maybe a subject or may even say I'm not ready to share this, which is of course really important as well. But if a brother is obviously uh, needing to find or articulate something, or it's not putting words in their mouths, it's just like a sprightly question, a compassionate and sprightly question, just um, to help that brother along. And number 12 is the second exception: call out transgressions with compassion. So um, yeah, for example, if someone jumps into some after someone has had a share and starts fixing them, so it's just quickly uh, whoever is guiding and a number of the brothers who have been coming a long time just step in and say, "Hey, we're going to just ask you observe that agreement that we don't fix and share." That was on the way to fixing. Um, And number 13 is exception number 3, act swiftly towards serious transgressions. So this has only really happened once, but it was serious enough that I guess that third exception of when to interrupt a brother. And that was really yeah, a very big ideological rant that ended up sort of belittling and shaming others, or attempting to belittle and shame others that weren't doing enough for a particular cause in the circle. So number 14, if new to the circle, let others lead. In other words, read the circle. So hang back. And 15 is leave space after each share. So that honors everybody's circle rather than saying, oh, well, that was very interesting. I'm just jumping in with my thing. Just it's really good just to have that sort of silence to yeah, just to reflect, and also yeah, just to allow that share to land in that sacred space. Number 16, turn off or don't bring phones. Our thing is, instead of having a blanket rule, no phones, sometimes a brother has a sick child at home whose partner may need his help, and we'll just have it on silent mode, but can, if he, yeah, like it gets to one of the agreements are coming up about not leaving the circle, but obviously in an emergency that overrides that. So yeah, so if most brothers 99% of the time don't bring it, but we also don't want to have absolutes as well. Like if someone has to bring a phone because they're on standby for something in the family or in their lives then. That's why that one's there. 17, complete the basket, even if uncomfortable. So we've had, what was that?
Yeah, even if
Oh,
uncomfortable.
and stay till the end. Yeah. So yeah, we've had brothers that have, so I talk about in the beginning that all of us around in a circle around the fire on our little stumps are like rods in the basket that starts off. The fire is sort of, and mother country are like the foundational parts of the basket, and we're the rods. And as we speak and move around the circle, we're weaving the basket. And if we get halfway through the basket, and someone leaves. Uh, and this, again, this has only happened once as well, but it's, or, just sort of kind of goes, oh, yeah, well, this is all pretty interesting. See you later, feminists. So we're asking, like, particularly people who are new to this process, that it's really disruptive and it puts a massive hole in the basket to be halfway through a process and someone just sort of like walks off. It's like, see it through. Like, we can see it through. This is only like a 3-4 hour gathering once every 3 weeks. And it's a process. So see it through. And yeah, we ask men that come to stay till the end. 18 is honor the time allocated and arrive on time. So even though this once we go into ceremonial space, clock time is dissolved beautifully. There's obviously, for those of us who hold the circle, we want to get brothers back home not too late. And we have our circles on a Sunday night. So it's the beginning of the work week for many brothers. And so so there is a kind of uh, yeah, ecological time and magic that happens in the circle. But those of us who are doing a little bit of extra holding basically are keeping uh, a, a lid on time. And particularly if there's 18 brothers, then we may have someone actually timing the big shares for about 4 or 5 minutes each. But ordinarily, there's a lot more time and spaciousness for that. 19, avoid stoking the fire while a brother shares. So we have a firekeeper at each circle, and that's their role, and they do it between people's shares. So that's just like part of the process of keeping the ceremony, yeah, just respectful, really. And number 20 is respect the fire, put in no waste. It's a sacred fire. And number 21, changes to the circle are not discussed in the circle. So in the early days, we used to confuse that. Like things would come up about the way in which we meet, and that would be discussed. And then it would end up the sort of men would move into just this logic center, and then it would just become very structural. And I mean, really the work for us is or a big part of it is communing with the divine goddess or the mother goddess, and bringing the sacred feminine back into a really significant part of our lives, and that is, I guess, our emotionality, like compassion and particularly intuition and gut logic. So yeah, that's probably enough.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to go through. We have some we have very similar agreements. We word ours slightly differently, and we popcorn ours. So at the beginning, after we've done listening to country, and an honouring of country, if it feels like it needs to be spoken, yeah, then we go through the agreements, and slightly different ones that we have. We say we speak from the heart and get to the heart of the matter. And we don't have a timekeeper, but are also very conscious of time because we want to finish at a timely hour and don't want to go on witchcrafting till midnight. In terms of the confidentiality one, we say, what is it, in term, not just the subject, but what has it provoked in you? What are the emotions that have arising in you from that share? And that's what, from another woman's share. And then, then you have permission just to talk about your own emotions. Don't mention anyone's names, but just for yourself, what has arisen and why, what is it, what is it? Why is that so big for you that you need to share? And again, we also have the sacred to sacred. And I feel like because Patrick and I have a deep listening circle, just the two of us every morning, that's a real opportunity for us to bring those things up that we have been alighted, lit in us. We also say not just sacred to sacred about another woman, but to a woman. So if a woman brings something up in her share and you see her at the post office or in the library or up the street, don't just say, hey, when you said this in your share, just you need to ask permission because it was brought up in a sacred space. And she might not have the headspace for it. She might have a million other things in her mind. So just to ask permission or send her a message to say, if you've got some space, I'd love to talk to you about that. And if you want to offer advice, that you just ask if that's welcome. Don't just assume because you're not in the circle that somebody then wants to hear.
Well, with that, we say that advice should be invited in, not like projected. So
Yeah.
yeah. So if a brother would like some reflections on what he shared, then
He can
to
ask
speak
for
that.
Yeah.
That's in the guidance as well. So I just went through the agreements, but we've got all these guiding points as well. But yeah.
Yeah. And maybe you've got a photo of that. Maybe
Yeah.
you could share that or something. I think that might be worthwhile to do that too. We don't have time to go through those guidances because I think that's really valuable.
Yeah.
We have a word that we like to use, which is witnessing. So it's witnessing, but with an H in there. That we're witnessing each other. That then we're not observing each other objectively, that we're witnessing each other collectively. And I might be the one who's the guide, but we're all holding the circle. And that's the beauty of the weaving of the basket, that if there's a hole, you notice it, that we're all as strong as the basket that is kept, that the integrity of the basket is held in shape by the agreements. And we also have a word that we say at the end of a share, and that word is acacia. So when you finish your share, and I know for me, when if I'm having a really big share, that I'll be silent for a while to see if there's anything else that's stirred up that I need to share, or if I'm having a really big cry, and then when I realize, okay, there's nothing else to share, then each woman after her share says acacia, and then the group echoes back acacia. And that word symbolizes for the woman who says it at the end of her share, it's like, thank you for listening. And the echoing back is like, thank you for sharing. And we hear you, we witness you, we see you in this moment. So yeah, it's a really beautiful part of the circle. And there are so many acacias in this forest. And just as an aside, a woman from the circle a year and a half ago had a baby and named her Bailey Acacia. So that also felt really, really special. Like she's born to sit in circle. Also, we say if you need to leave at a certain time, so we also meet at 6, we try to finish by 9. Sometimes we squeeze a bit more until 9:30. But if you have to leave at a certain time, let the group know up front. So usually it's the mums with young kids say, I have to leave by 9. And so sometimes we'll finish the 3 circles, but we're singing or we're going through some kind of talking about different community things that are happening. Then that woman is welcome to go. And if a woman does need to go, then just to leave, just to, and preferably not, well, definitely not during a woman's share. And also if the smoke from the fire, if the wind is is rippling the smoke and it's coming towards you and you need to move, then just move. You don't need to say, oh, I'm just going to move over here. You can just move. You can just move to a place where the smoke is not. And again, a bit more about the fire. As Patrick said, that it's a sacred fire. We don't put tissues in it. We don't put scrunched up bits of paper that we find in our pocket. We don't even throw leaves or sticks or anything in it. There is a fire keeper, and that is the fire keeper's job to tend that fire. And the fire is like this central theme, this central character. And to read the fire. And I was saying to Patrick after the last circle, where he gifted us this incredible fire. It was a really, really cold, rainy, kind of drizzly night, and you made the most beautiful fire. And often, well, always, Patrick will leave some logs next to, like some logs to put in the fire next to where I sit, and a fire poker, leaning on my stool, which I think is where you sit as well. And I didn't actually have to add any logs. I could have added a few towards the end, but there's something about also having that fire, and I guess this is part of the set and setting, is that we all just sit, we all hop off our logs and sit on the ground and get closer to the fire as the night goes on. And there's something really magical about that too. It's sort of like we're getting closer and closer.
And just
Yeah.
on a practical note, like environmentally, there is this sort of tendency to be really super frugal with firewood and not create lots of, burn lots of carbon. But when this 3 hours is such a special event, to get a big fire going early and then to have a coal base means it doesn't smoke, and it actually means that it radiates heat. It keeps everybody warm.
We all take our shoes off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big part of it.
It is. It is.
Skin on the hearth.
Yeah.
Is important.
And you can't really do that in this cold climate unless there's a big fire.
Yeah.
So that's also part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also just as far as the holding and the guiding of the circle in the warmer months, we always call the fire in to our local CFA, like our local Central Country Fire Authority, or whoever sort of manages that where you are. We always call the fire in. And we say that it's a small cooking fire. And they ask what the dimensions are and what we're burning, and if it's cleared, and if we have any, if we need a permit in your area, they'll ask you that, all these questions. And also, if it's a total fire ban, we wouldn't light the fire.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So songs and sound circles, I thought I'd speak a little bit about that. The men have two other movements apart from the 3 sharing circles. We haven't even spoken about those 3 circles.
Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I'll just quickly speak to that. So the first sharing circle is like, what have you arrived with? Something like that. It can be themed. Meg might talk about themes in a minute. What have you arrived with? Yeah, and that just gives an opportunity. It's a short circle. We usually go from the brother who goes first. We go sunwise from there, so east to west. And the second circle is bigger. It's like a big, tight, like spacious circle to really share what needs to be shared, to speak to. Like sometimes for me personally, that's an opportunity just to try to excavate into my shadows and into my fear, to see if there's I'm sitting with fear or shadows and what they are at that time, and what it is that's stopping me from really enjoying and finding bliss, enjoying my life, finding bliss and peace, and not being in arguments and not being impatient as a father, and really trying to drill down on what it is that is not allowing me to thrive as a person. And a few weeks back, I've been working on a manuscript for about 10 years and about a lot of this stuff. And I have just been unbeknownst to myself until this night, I've been like putting it off and not so close to finishing it, but kind of not wanting to. And I really wanted to unpack that. I didn't really understand why. And the circle was just really useful for understanding what was holding me back, what my fears were, what was disabling me from completing this relationship that had been as a poetic relationship that's been going on for so long. And so in that, after that share, the third circle is like the integration. So that was the big share for me on that night. And the third one was realizing that I'm actually going to make a pledge in this. I'm going to make a pledge that I finish this within a certain time. And so I've held myself to that pledge. And so vows and pledges, and these are things that we've lost. They've become really unfashionable in modernity.
Also, before, uh, when we first sit down at the circle, when everybody's there, we go around, and I always say in the emails, and we'll talk about the emails and the different ways that we communicate as a group, to come with food in your belly and to bring a thermos of tea and a cup. And so as soon as we sit down, we each announce what sort of tea we have in our thermos, and does anyone need a spare cup? And then the cups and the thermoses get passed around, and it's just such a lovely thing to be part of. And it's like, who's got these kind of obscure herbs that they've got in their garden, or who's just got like a lovely milky honey sweet chai, or just it's really lovely just to try new things. And because we are tea drinkers, we also, between each circle, we have a wee and tea break. And between the circles, we ask that people remain in silence, that it's not just sort of open to chit chat. If you need to go wee, just go. And if you need tea, just try to do that in a really respectful, quiet way. Um, and so our first circle is we speak our name, and usually the invitation is to. Oh, so we also have, I've just remembered, another agreement that I think you might have too, which is there's no need to share. If you don't want to share, is that one of your
That's
guidances?
in a
Yeah.
guidance.
So
Yeah.
if you don't want to share, you don't have to. Just to sit and witness is enough. And yeah, that's just a really beautiful aspect of it. And particularly for new women, they might not feel ready to. And there's no obligation. Just to sit and listen is
On that,
really.
no basket is perfect. I mean, we're not trying to create, like when we're talking about a uniformity and everyone completing the basket, the basket can be completed, but like in a very bizarre shape and odd and with a big bulgy bit here and sort of like more lean parts over here. So that's perfectly cool too. We're not
Yeah,
trying to perfect the basket
yeah.
at all.
Um,
I feel
yeah.
like we're sort of moving towards question time.
Okay.
And we've really just talked a lot about men's and women's circles, but we've also been holding grief circles and vigils, which are 3 and 4 night and day what we call listening to country fasts. A thing that I wanted to also talk about is the sounds and song circles, which I think I started to.
Mm.
Um, so I might just like finish with that, and then if you finish with what you need to finish with, and then we'll go to questions. How does
Great.
that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, so we Fire Cry Men several years ago, or no, we've only been going 8 years, so it was probably about 4 years ago. I came across some Russian men singing on YouTube, and it was like I sent it out to the group saying, "Oh my God, this is so beautiful. Why don't we bring song into the circle?" But rather than appropriate someone else's culture, why don't we only sing songs that come from the hearth, that whether they be poems that a brother brings, and then a few of us are musical. And so then, anyway, we've got 12 songs, which is after 4 years. And those songs are really dear and special to us. And we sing them at ceremony. And we've shared a couple of them. In fact, we shared one recently on YouTube, which is the Mother of Mountain song.
That the men sang at our recent community winter solstice gathering, which is also one of the ceremonies that we hold in this forest.
Fragrant, flowering, breathing fruit, birthing, carrying life to fruit.
there's probably about 3 or 4 or 5 song makers or poets that have um, brought songs to the circle. But yeah, we start with a song and often end the circle with a song, so that at least 2 songs are sung out of the 12. But yeah, just I want to get to that. The somatic stuff is really important. So after the middle circle, the second circle, after which is a big share, and quite often there's a heaviness. It's quite often a grief circle, not always. But we don't want to call it a grief circle because brothers can also bring anything else to that circle, of course. But it's quite often one brother share like gives permission for our griefs to come into the fold and come into consciousness. And there are, of course, so many griefs from the little day-to-day griefs, the little griefs of a 13-year-old turning 14 and never knowing that 13-year-old again in to the big seismic griefs of our day, the big permanent war, the forever war griefs, the genocides, and the big stuff, and everything in between. So that circle it then needs movement. Just to go for us to go back into another speaking circle, it hasn't felt right. So we've developed this sort of, I guess, in the tradition of sound bathing, whatever the themes that have come up is usually the lead. So the person that leads the somatic, what we call the somatic circle, which is stepping away from the fire into the dark forest, creating a circle standing, and then through, sometimes we don't even need someone to guide this. Many of us just know what to do. But when we start moving, like the old Indian medicine of shaking, and then there's an invitation to sound out something that might be the theme, or to connect with the birds that are going roosting in the forest. It can be a whole lot of things that can be really artfully guided, but it also can just be a collective effort going there, particularly if the circle is made up of experienced circlers. So that is a very beautiful process, and generally it starts in a kind of chaotic order, a kind of loosening, a catharsis, a letting go. It's quite primal. It's very masculine, and it can really just allow primal emotionality to be set free. It can be probably quite scary for neighbors. Although we haven't had any bad feedback, thank God. But then it after that initial sort of catharsis and letting go, it finds its own form and rhythm, and then this collective, every time completely different choral wave of the men who have lost all inhibition by this stage. We're all dark. We all know each other. No one's looking at each other. No one's judging each other. And so the inhibition is just gassed off. And we just go into this crooning, loving, sometimes wild, sometimes, our most enlightened heart, sometimes our goat lower body selves. Uh, yeah, I'm not doing this justice really, but it's a very powerful circle, and in the tradition of sound bathing. And then if a brother or 2 or 3 have had really big shares, we then ask them to step in, and then the circle gathers around, and we link arms, arm to arm, and create this tight little basket around that brother or those brothers. And then we go again with this sort of wave of uninhibited choral, animal, poetic, um, yeah, crooning, or whatever. And then we pair back after the end of that and look at the fire, and just behold the magic that's been created there in the dark. And then we gather around the fire for the third circle, and then we check out. Yeah.
Magic. So we invited a couple of the fire choir men to our circle a couple of years ago to take us through their process to see what we thought if it was going to work for us and to see, maybe there were aspects of it. So we just had the three talking circles and we really loved that experience. It was really moving and very, yeah, it was really big for us. But then the women decided unanimously, actually, that we need the three talking circles. Like if we had endless amounts of time or a whole day, we would definitely incorporate some of those movement and singing aspects, or the sound aspects. But we just need to talk, and that's enough. That seems like really satisfying for us. So I'll just go back very quickly to our three circles. So the first one, we say our name, and usually it's something like, what are you loving about the season? Or let's collectively honor country and just say one thing that you love about, some aspect of country. And then, or yeah, say your name and then something that's really lighting you up at the moment, just especially for newer women or women who are more introverted, it just gives them, and everybody wants to talk about what they love. And that's also really special. And then we have a quick wee and tea break. Usually we don't actually break, but just to have that opportunity. And then the middle circle is a bigger share. And sometimes we have themes and sometimes we don't. And if we don't, it's just an invitation to talk about something that's really big for you, what's happening in your life right now that you would like to share. Whether it's kind of a sticking point or something in your life that's stopping the flow of your life or your chi. And the themes we have are things like in May we had a theme of mother or motherlessness or not, empty wombs, or there was just something about mother or motherhood or mothers that you wanted to speak to, and that was really, really big, as I'm sure you could appreciate. And just really, really beautiful. There were lots. That was a very, very deep circle. And yeah, it was very special. Our recent in June, the theme for our circle was the darkness and the mystery of the dark. And the theme was what is it that's in you that feels unseen, whether by yourself or by the world, or maybe you're keeping it hidden. And just to talk a little bit about that. And again, that was really big and very, very special and very moving. So they're the kinds of themes that we have. Then we'll stop for wee and tea break. Often we'll get up and have a stretch. And then the third one, also the integration circle. This is our kind of standard theme now for the third circle because it just works so beautifully. And that is to an invitation for each of us to thank another woman for something that she's shared that's really resonated with you. And the thanks go round and around. And sometimes if a woman's had a really big share, all the thanks will go to her. But sometimes there's really sort of much more nuanced moments of shares that people will have really touched them and people will respond to. And then if we've got time, we'll sing a song. We are now something that has come out of our recent winter solstice gathering, hearing the men sing as they do every year or most years. The women have now decided that we're going to have our own singing circle, but we're going to have it separately to our monthly circle because it's just we don't have time to really give breath and space and spaciousness to the songs. So we're going to start by singing the songs from Fire Choir, and then we'll take it from there and see. We also have some choir mistresses and song minstrels amongst us, so we'll see. And again, just original songs, and we'll see how it goes from there. Yeah, and also in terms of like talking about the business of the circle. We do that after the third circle and after the singing. And if there's time at the end, we'll quickly talk about things there.
I feel like we should get to questions.
Let's do that.
Yeah. If you have a question,
Please unmute yourself.
Um, I have really latched on to a word that you've shared a lot, which is reculturing. And I just wondered if you could talk to how ceremony and ritual ties into that for you, because that's what really drew me into this particular discussion and how I feel like that plays a role in my life. Yeah, around sort of creating a new culture within our communities and creating new situations for us to explore
Hmm.
being human, you know?
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
question. Thank you for that. Culture comes from the word cultura, which means to cut or cultivate the soil. And as we said in the beginning, getting uh, our household economy and community economy in order then was the first part of this process of reculturing. Not that we knew that that's what we were doing back then, but I feel like the economy we make is the culture we make, and the culture we make is the economy that informs it. And so the reculturing comes from the deeper we go into alternative economies that are outside of the financial industrial complex and that domination economy, um, then the more processes and relationships form. And then as a result, you, we move from secular atheists to animists. And it didn't happen through ideology. It actually happened through our hands getting dirty and composting our shit in a bucket and growing our veggies from it and closing the poop loop and becoming an extension of Mother Country by those microbial and biological processes. And so the honoring and the gratitude wasn't cultivated through a guru or a book or a text, but actually through these humility practices of learning to grow food and recycle um, our, our biological wastes in beautiful and powerful and earth honoring ways. So I feel like that's probably
Yeah.
the nub of what we mean by reculturing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Ren. Jess, did you have a question?
Hello, you two
Um,
and everyone. Thank you so much. Um, oh, I have so many questions, but just the one that I'm curious about is, do you, when you're holding these spaces, do you have like your own relationship with the trickster archetype, and do you like witness that come into the circle often? Yeah, and like, yeah, and how do you continue holding that space? Because I really, that has changed my life, like becoming or coming into relationship with this archetype, and um allows me to hold things lightly and like get off my high horse a little bit in these sacred spaces.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That is one of our other things that we've got on our list of things to talk about is just exactly this, the disruptors and the trickster energy. And we did want to talk about, well, first of all, I think there's a really fine line between playfulness and cheekiness. There's definitely room for this, for the trickster energy, for me anyway, in sacred spaces. You know, there's like it's like a fine line, I feel like.
Mm.
Yeah, of holding. But in terms of disruptors, also seeing that as trickster energy. And yeah, that's also a bit of a dance and, you know, calling out transgressions, absolutely. And also the invitation is to, for those who are part of the circle, that it's up to all of us to call out the transgressions and not in a kind of top down heavy way, but it's like, it's weakening the integrity of the circle, and yeah, just how to do that really artfully. And yeah, I feel like it's also because I'll just say we have had only one occasion where a woman transgressed, and she was going into a big philosophical rant that I could see was making not just me feel very uncomfortable, because it was not part of the story. It was just in and of itself. She wasn't then getting to the heart of the matter. So yeah, there was a bit of a back and forth, and this woman hasn't returned to the circle. Yeah.
And yeah, I'll just speak to that.
Yeah.
We've had lots of disruptors and lots of trickster energy come in to our circle, and that's really grown our circle up, and also been incredibly annoying. So depending on what it is, like there's like there's sort of I guess the disruptors that come to any circle like this are not necessarily, we've never had anyone come to actually purposely disrupt yet. But through a kind of just critically lacking awareness of the shadow realm, that there is this sort of will to connect and this will to be part of, and yet this whole other side that needs to hack and slash and in a way that I understand, just in terms of myself, in a more subtle way of not struggling to finish a manuscript, and the sort of disruptive and self derailing that can happen in our lives, or in my life. So I always, in hindsight, am glad for what Trickster brings because of the learning that comes. But I'm also glad for periods of great stability. Yeah.
Thanks, Jess.
Beautiful. Thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd love to ask a question if there's time. Hi, how you doing?
Hi, Chad.
I feel we as a family just watched your documentary a few days ago. So it feels really, I feel like I know you more than I do. I live on Kangaroo Island, and it's a pretty remote place with quite a small community, and 5,000 people population on the island in total. Quite backwards in a lot of ways. It's like a time warp. Things have moved very slowly here. And I've spent time in intentional community and stuff, mainland and traveling before I moved here with a young family. Now I've got 3 kids, and I've noticed that the island has a lot of community through proximity. We are here not intentionally necessarily. We are community because we're the only people here around each other. And so running circle spaces and in more intentional community space has this bit of like disconnect, perhaps, as people are not stepping into it from the same intentionality. And I just wanted to sort of give you the opportunity, or ask the opportunity of you to see if you have any ideas of like things that might really support creating those community spaces here in an environment that's not so intentional choice first, if that makes sense.
Yes. Thank you, Charles. Great question.
That's a great question.
Yeah. And something that we talked about recently, after we were part of the winter solstice gathering, is that it seemed to be a way for people to access the sacred in a way that wasn't them talking about themselves. And so that just felt like bringing broader community ceremony in, feels like a really like a gentle way of bringing people in. And even, as part of that ceremony, we were all asked to bring a candle, and we all lit a candle at one stage. And just the lighting of a candle in a forest with a few fires around and no blue light is ceremonial. And just to give people a taste of the sacred and the timelessness, I feel like is just, and if things move slowly, then how wonderful just to honor that slowness. Yeah, because also this is how, yeah, communities have their own personalities. And we live in a town with, about 5,000 people. So yeah, I really get the sense of it.
Yeah, I'm going to answer it in a different way. Because of Woody's interest in cricket, I went back to cricket, supporting him, like going down to the nets, and then all of a sudden I was a cricket dad, and then all of a sudden I was playing in the adults, and all of a sudden I was coach and captain of the seniors, and
Yeah.
so. But what I found in that process by following and supporting our son and in his interest as he supports us in ours, and because that's the culture of the house he's grown up in, and how we integrate his interests and our interests is how we keep more peace in the house. So but what I found is that sports clubs, because we're also playing soccer this winter as a family, our eldest boy Zeph led us all back to the soccer club, which is wonderful. He's playing and Woody and I are playing. And so what I've found about those spaces is that in terms of like um, what I've learned sitting with men and understanding that men operate from their wounds, like the majority of humans, and that consciousness around our wounds actually enables us to be less reactive and more responsive and more responsible. So, like knowing that as a thing that brings well-being and happiness to man, it's like I can take that as a coach and a captain to a sports team, and so in a way, and there's other men in that sports club that have also done men's work, and so there is this sort of shifting culture, and it's like just as rich to see the little changes that you can do in something quite mainstreamy like an Australian sports club, as well as have the deeply poetic stuff for men who have really sort of seek that sort of space and seek that divine communing with the feminine, the sacred feminine. So I would say, what is, and this is the other thing about knowing, I've been in this area now 30 years, but I was once a newcomer who sort of came to the area, and it was pretty loose and cheap and bohemian and just out of Melbourne. And, we all squatted and rented and, paid marginal rents, and we could live really cheaply. And out of that was great creativity, and a lot of beautiful things happened in that space. But also, I came thinking, I know what this town needs kind of mentality, and you still see it today. And so sometimes I think just listening and observing and seeing what is already sacred in the community that and then like supporting and growing that, and it's playing sport together. I wouldn't have said this a year or two ago, but it's actually a beautiful, sacred thing. And particularly when when you've put protocols and agreements in place that we don't bag each other and we don't bag the opposition. We can banter and be cheeky and tricksterish with the opposition, but we don't bag each other. And just stopping that, like that is a major intervention into an Australian sports club. And it's beautiful, and it creates a place where we're retained 100% of players this year. Because of that. So that those sorts of things it's like what are we working with and beside?
And also a small intervention, like if you're even if you're hosting a birthday party, and your pause before you eat, and just a very brief honoring of the food, or honoring of the animal protein of that food, or just sort of like, blessings on the food and all of the inputs, just sort of something basic like that. We also have, about 10 years ago, we were starting out one of our bigger community gardens, and a whole lot of us community gardeners got together beforehand for a couple of weekends in a row with sewing machines and fabric, and we made pennant flags, bunting. We call it bunting. It's 50 meters long, and that gets lent out to anybody in the community who wants to put the bunting up for their party. There's a book that travels around it and people write down their event. And this is like over 10 years. We've now got 2 books that travel around because the first one's full. But just they hold the stories of these community rituals and celebration. And you know, when you go to a gathering and the bunting's there, that's sort of like there's a connection that you have to it because you've had it at your housewarming, you've had it at your children's birthday parties and, you know, whatever, you know, book launches and school fests, and it just gets put up all the time. And also just, yeah, little things like that we found really meaningful. Yeah. One
Can I add something quickly?
Yeah.
My partner's.
Okay.
This book is. Have you read Jack's? It feels like that's already what you practice, but for anyone that's on the call,
Yes.
it's a really great resource.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is a great resource.
I just have written down here some other resources as well, and people who we've read who we really like. As Patrick mentioned before, Michael Mead. He's also got a really great podcast. He does a lot on myth and myth. He's like a mythologist. Also, Patrick mentioned Martin Prechtel, another really important one. Also, Francis Weller. His books are really important. Especially his book, The Wild Edge of Sorrow. And he's got a newer one of essays called In the Absence of the Ordinary. I'm really into Carl Jung. I think Jung's philosophies are really important. And also James Hillman, just in terms of Michael Mead stuff as well, just as a mythologist, and also his work in psychotherapy and therapy.
I think equally important, though, is that these books are a beautiful complement what we're doing. But I think there is something really, and I'm glad I had Michael Mead and Prechtel's book to refer to on that first circle. But I think, trusting ourselves that we are ceremonial. We are a ceremonial species. We make ritual. We do it wherever we go. Even many people have little rituals of saying hello to country, and I feel like it's deep in our bones, and we've only recently lost it, or we've had formal religious institutions do all the sort of ritual making on our behalf. And at the same time, a lot of people that come to Circle also have a religious or spiritual practice, a tradition. I'm quite interested in not having much tradition and having books that complement what we're doing, but actually we're led by the goddess herself, and that means country. And so the greatest text or the greatest elders in this space for me is Mother Country and Father Fire. And the relationship with them is for me the most significant teaching that I've received. And of course, grief as a wild teacher as well.
Any other questions? I did see one pop up before. You mentioned, Bronwyn, you mentioned about the business of organizing in emails. Can you share about that? Thank you for the question. So I send an email out at the beginning of each month with the details for the circle of that month, and I BCC everybody. And that works really well. It's just a simple email, hit reply if you would like to reserve a log, and then I put it on my spreadsheet. And then we also we do have an RSVP for our circles, whereas the men don't. And I do. We have a very large number of women who would like to come, and we cap it at 20 logs. And we also have a long wait list for the circle. It's an open circle, and usually I send the email out. If after 48 hours there are still logs available, then I will send it out to the next tier of women out, the next group out. But I really want to keep it to the regulars, because I know if I were to miss out and I just didn't check my inbox and I missed out on a circle being a woman who needs this circle, I would feel very sad. And so that's why we do it in that way. And that was after a discussion about how we're going to do this. So we remain an open circle, but we still keep it to the regulars first. And so they have the dibs on claiming the logs. Do you want to talk about how you guys do it?
Yeah. So there's 5 of us in a leadership role in fire choir, and we get together. We have a signal chat group. We keep usually the chats pretty brief, usually a week before a circle. There's a question I might pose, like who's alive to guiding the circle. We like to have one main guider and then a support guider. Then we have a fire holder. Sorry, a fire holder, a fire keeper, and a song holder, or as someone who brings the songs, and that's a regular role. There's a few that do the fire keeping, and there's a number of us who do the guiding. So, yeah, we establish roles before that, and then whoever's going to be the main guider of the circle then puts a call out on the chat group, of which there's about 35 men. And usually around, as I said before, about 12 to 18 show up, but it's always open. Brothers bring friends along.
So one of the questions from Jess is age limits. We've had, so there's no upper limit. And we have women in their 20s to late 70s, almost 80s who sit in circle, and that's so beautiful. I think for us oldering women, to have the elders there is really, really special. And also, we haven't really talked about the importance of eldering in ceremonial work and in revillaging, just how we've really called out our elders, to really invited them to step up as elders for us as a family, and that's been a really beautiful and important process.
But also in a community role as well, like at the different solstice gatherings, and so it's usually men in their early 20s to late 70s that are coming.
Yeah. So the question is grief part of each men's circle, or are they themed?
We've had periods of time where they've been themed, but what we find is that the themes reveal themselves. It's amazing how that works in a circle, and it's mainly because I might show up to a circle and listen to a big share, and then all of a sudden realize that I'm also carrying something very similar, and so my share might pivot to that when it's my turn to speak, and then someone else might have that. So you know. So themes, we've actually decided to keep the questions for each of the circle, or the invitation pretty open-ended, so that themes can actually, rather than be given, that they actually come up themselves. But grief is a main theme that comes up in the middle circle.
I also wanted to say that although we do usually have themes, that the theme is just a prompt. It's just an invitation. And if you don't want to speak to that theme, you don't have to. It's up to you if you want to. But sometimes it is nice just to have that. But sometimes I might bring a theme and then not speak to it if that doesn't call me in that moment. Also, as women, just thinking about the age limit, well, we also say it's babes in arms. So if mums want to bring their babes, if they're not crawling, then bring them along. And we've had so many babes at Circle, including one mum who's brought, no, not all 3. She's at her second and third she's brought. And I love having the babies, and especially when they cry and then one of us just grabs the baby and walks off so the mum can sit and have her share. Also, somebody meant 2 other things that people have brought up. One of them was if there are people who can't sit in circle or can't sit on low logs, we have a couple of women who sometimes just stand because they've got back issues, and also 2 women who bring their own chairs, like camp chairs, like more sitting armchairy kind of things. And we just make room. We just make room around the circle for that. Do you have any? men who can't do that?
No, but we had a brother who came in his 80s, and it's quite a winding path. So a number of us um, helped him negotiate his wheelchair down to there and then back up again. So yeah, it's yeah, we just adapt to whoever shows up and what needs are there. We try to meet.
Yeah. I just wanted to also mention something that we've got on our other things list, is the concept of money. Do people pay for the circle? Our circles are 100% non-monetary. And Patrick and I both feel very strongly about that we don't commodify the sacred. That, it takes a lot from our family to be involved in these ceremonies, but it gives so much more than it takes. And we both feel 100% entirely committed to these circles and to being part of these processes. And yeah, I think if you're paying for something like this, and you might need to, maybe if it's for a community hall or something like that, if that's the only space that you have access to, I think gold coin donation or something like that.
Covering costs, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
But anyway, that's just how we do it. And there is, I've sat in circle with men discussing payment, and I used to have a more hardline approach about that, but I have heard other arguments for, particularly it depends on how much work is going into it. But I don't want to get caught up in whether that's right or wrong. It just feels right for us.
That's right.
That these are community events, and yeah, that it also feels really good distributing in the men's groups, particularly, is that I really called younger men to come forward and do the holding and to have roles, because firstly, it's exhausting. And secondly, I want to be able to just rock up to that circle and just to really sit in as a participant, or just do the firekeeping, or just be one of the rod holders of the basket weaving. And it's really wonderful, these younger men stepping up and becoming really proficient and poetic in how they guide the circles. So that's a beautiful development. But you've got a different
we do. I know the men do a lot of holding in their lives and community. The women feel they're also just happy just to rock up and not to think about anything. They just show up and everything is kind of taken care of. And I have capacity in my life to do that. We've also opened it up and no one has put their hand up to be a participant in that way. Like to be more of a guide in that way. And at the moment, I'm really happy to do that, and it's working fine. It's working. And somebody asked, just what happens when we go away? So we just we're going away for the month of August. So for our August circle, I've just put it out there. If I'm happy to send the email out. I'm happy to. If somebody else wants to send the email, I can send our list out. This is the beauty of it being on common land, that anybody's welcome just to go down to that space and just
it's really quite important to step outside. If you're a community actor in your village, in your part of the world, and you're finding you're doing a fair bit of holding, it's really great to go away in order for other people to come step forward and understand, and start to learn, if there is spirit for that, to learn just some of the organizational stuff, because really it's the men. This is a co-creation with the men. What I do is just basic organization now, and I share that. So it's really joyful to work in. I mean, we collaborate as a family, and we collaborate in a community context, and yeah, the more the merrier in terms of the holding, yeah, and portioning roles and finding roles, or men uh, claiming roles. I think that's when it gets really exciting. I want to be the firekeeper. Cool.
And that feels exciting that one woman in particular has taken the lead on the singing circle. So that also feels really exciting.
I feel like we're at time.
Yeah, we are. I think so. Thanks so much, everybody. I feel like we could have another session just of Q&As. Yeah.